Hey everybody, welcome back to part 3 of stories, The Path of Destinies. You're watching from YouTube, this is the third part, and I don't know how many more parts there will be. I guess we'll just have to play through and see how long it takes. There we go.
The clouds parted over the Isles of Boreas. It was time to choose. The rebellion was in trouble. Ravens were scouting for the secret rebel base. They needed a game changer. Pieces of the Sky Ripper had surfaced. Or so a scholar in the mountains had told him. Surely the weapon that banished the lost gods could defeat the Emperor.
Also, a temple had risen out of empty desert. The Emperor had brought the Sky Ripper pieces up out of ancient burial by his obscene rituals. Could this be where the Iblis stone was hidden? Someone better get it before he does, thought Renato. And also, his old friend Lupino needed rescuing. Of course, Renato had a pretty strong suspicion that Lupino had betrayed the rebellion. But could Renato really leave an old friend to the Ravens?
Every child knew about the Sky Ripper. The Transcendent Emperor had buried its pieces. What could have brought them to light? This Emperor, Isengrim III, had once been kind, but he'd gone mad. And now he was conducting secret, obscene rituals to bring back the lost gods. Had he, somehow, summoned the long-lost components of the legendary weapon out of the deep places of the earth? It was more than Renato could fathom. But if he could find a legendary weapon, he would use it.
As he set foot on the island, Renato couldn't help feeling a bit curious. Was Lupino still waiting to be rescued? No. He was probably drinking champagne with the ravens. Did ravens drink champagne? Did rabbits? Renato felt oddly thirsty, come to think of it. Why had he chosen the Sky Ripper?
Renato never made plans that required constant vigilance. He was a hero. He didn't think too much. He just went with his gut and hoped it all worked out. The Sky Ripper was a long shot. He'd have to devote himself to it. No side journeys, no rescuing old friends. That was against his nature. Could he stick with it? Renato hated gogglers, and it freaked him out to cut them.
Good thing you have this ability.
The people who had built this castle, did they even know what monstrous weapon lay hidden within their walls? The Sky Ripper could destroy anything it touched, or so the legend said. As the Transcendent Emperor had fought the lost gods, thousands of thousands had died. But Renato had been through wars. The only merciful war was a short one. The new pathway made Renato curious. This chest contained a Vorpal sword. I'm just kidding. Vorpal swords don't exist.
Okay, not going back that way. Really good.
It was all coming back to him. He wondered what he'd remember next.
Ice walls only let you through if they knew you were cool. He wished there were more pylons he could use the hook on. He really needed to construct additional pylons. Well, the eyes have had it.
What does the fox say? Asked one raven. Another one called back, Go, dying! And they both laughed hysterically.
Puzzle. Renato loved puzzles. Except when he couldn't figure them out. On the other hand, if there was a puzzle, it was probably meant to keep people away from something good.
Why would anyone put his slinky collection in a strongbox, thought Renato. Are they magic slinkies?
Oh, that had been his mistake before. Not trusting Zenobia's feelings for him. But how could he have known? After all these years of silence?
Let me see.
There it was.
Storm Ripper.
Sky Ripper's armature. The stuff that dreams are made. Engineers' dreams, anyway. The device was intricate. No one alive had the skill to make a thing like it. How was it part of a weapon at all? He'd have to ask a scientist. But first, he'd get the second piece. Sky Ripper had a heart. A core that had come to rest on the next island. Well, there was another island he could reach. Zenobia had just invaded it with her father's Raven battalions. She must be encamped there still. But fighting Zenobia now, that made no sense at all. He'd already sacrificed one friend to get this armature, was it? He didn't need to hurry to face her. She would find him. It was a no-brainer. He'd sacrificed his old friend Lapino to get the armature. And the armature was useless by itself, only a series of coils and wheels. War demanded sacrifices, and he would make more before the end. He would have to choose the greatest good, no matter how much it cost him. Zenobia. Well, he would see her sooner or later, across a battlefield or a sword's point before all this was over. He was sure of that. The power was in the core. Obviously, he had to get the core. Doubt sunk in before he was even out of sight of the Farfarer. Why had he chosen the Sky Ripper? It was the sort of path he'd always avoided. The path of responsibility, of seriousness. Had he grown up? He didn't feel grown up. He'd made this decision from his gut, like he always did. Somehow, he'd impulsively decided to stop being impulsive. Did that make any sense? Zenobia. Now that he knew she still loved him, he wanted to go back to her. But that hadn't worked out, had it? Maybe it was time to find the core of the Sky Ripper.
Going down here.
It was time to make a new sword. There was something sour in the air. Like the earth had ruptured over something that had been fermenting for a very long time. traitors! Caught the ravens. There were fewer and fewer trees. There were only these huge crystalline
Combat
growths.
out here is a lot like Batman.
Those been here before. He no longer heard birds except for the feverish cawing of the ravens when they attacked. He couldn't smell the small animals of the forest, the mice and rabbits. Where had they gone? And he was getting hungry too. This was an unhealthy place to be. The 20-sided core made him feel physically sick. Once he had sneaked into a temple of the dark art, and he hadn't liked what he smelt and saw there. This felt like that. As quick as he could, he wrangled the icosahedron into the armature. The wheels began to spin, then glow. The sick feeling quickly spun away. Now he only felt sad. He had lost good friends for this war apparatus. Maybe Lapino wasn't such a good friend. Yeah, that made him feel better. He carried his prize back to the Farfarer. Now, he had to make his next move. There was a key Imperial outpost on the Nexus. If this really was some sort of super weapon, he could use it to wreak havoc on the enemy. And if it wasn't, well, better to know that before the final battle. But maybe he should show it to some scientists first. There was an observatory on the Nexus. Maybe he should go there before he fired it. Well, of course. If you've just assembled a weapon out of legend that can exile gods from the world, you'd want to have a scientist or two look at it. And even if they disagreed and he had time, he could ask Calaveras himself. Yes, the observatory would be his objective.
Lots of choices in this game.
Why had the parts of the Sky Ripper only surfaced now? Thousands of years after the Transcendent Emperor had dismantled it. The mad Emperor Isengrim had performed terrible, bloodthirsty rituals to invoke the lost gods. Was that why these ancient artifacts were rising out of the ground? How perfect, then, that the Sky Ripper would reappear to be his destruction.
legendary weapon was exactly what the rebellion needed. They were outnumbered. The once kind
Yeah, I know, I
Emperor
missed
had
that.
become a
I've been to this
tyrant,
board several times.
but his
For
ravens
anyone
stayed
just joining
loyal,
this one.
for he fed them his victims, and the other animals are too frightened to rebel.
Hey, Joey, what's
Renato
up?
shuddered at what the Emperor was trying to do. To bring back the lost gods, the Black Harvest, the Black Sun? No. He would stop that toad, no matter what the risk.
Renato's path was clear. Let the scientists ensure the Sky Ripper was safe to use, bring it to the rebel base.
I'm playing this game here for the last couple days. It's pretty fun, especially for a free game. I can't complain a bit. There's weapon upgrading and socket gems. I mean, and combat is just like Batman, so it's fairly fun to play too. Nice. Yeah, PS4s are fun. I was even thinking about doing that PlayStation Now deal. Seems like it'd be a good investment.
Now he could slice the wings off a fly.
Hundreds of games to play.
Not that he would. It's sort of mean, really.
Nice. So you get 4 swords that you can choose from. Each of them have a special ability. You level them up twice. And you got all sorts of gems. Yeah, it's a fun game, dude. It's definitely worth it. You see, you got all different kinds of gems you can add on there. On your gauntlet. It gives you extra abilities. Yeah, this game is way fun. Usually, the games that not many people heard of
There was an inscription.
aren't really worth it, but this one was worth it. Definitely worth it. See, each sword has their own ability, and like this one could heal you, which really comes in handy. Sure, it's instead of 1, the number 1, it's the spelling of 1, Archangel 1. Go right ahead, man. As you can see, if you stick around long enough, there's other stories.
Odd that they never locked these things.
Like multiple stories that you go through to find out truths to get to the true end of the game. So this game, I think even the replay value on this is going to be high for a game like this, and considering it's free, man, I can't complain.
Renato was thrilled. The scientists seemed to think he'd put the Sky Ripper together right. But one toad was worried.
Yeah, the Sky Ripper could carve a hole in existence itself. There are invisible strings that tie the universe together. If the Sky Ripper cut one, the hole would widen and widen until our whole existence fell into it.
Another toad sighed. Irving still believes.
Hey, got your request. I'll add you here in a minute.
At least go see Calaveras.
Yeah, said the worried toad.
He knows more than anyone else has forgotten about the Transcendent Emperor.
If anyone could tell him how to use this weapon safely, it would be Calaveras. It was he who had told Renato how to find it in the first place. But maybe he had to give up on using it as a weapon. Maybe he had to go to the secret rebel base and ask the generals there what he could do with a weapon that he dared not use.
You see, and go to the guy. The final authority in our legendary artifacts, or and then not use the Sky Ripper. What do you think? Which one should I choose? Hard to say. I'm gonna go back through all these multiple times to get all the endings anyway. So in the long run of it, really don't matter too much. But all right, we'll go with that one.
Well,
Viewer's choice.
No need to have to consult Calaveras again. The scientists at the observatory were smart enough. But what did they know of the Transcendent Emperor? He hoped it wouldn't delay him too long. The rebels had scheduled the final battle soon. Every day they delayed risked the exposure of the secret base. And some soldiers were already drifting back to their homes and families. Calaveras would fix the Sky Ripper for him. And then he would win the final battle. Maybe it was the cold. But after a few steps, Renato's optimism started to slump. What if Calaveras couldn't help? Did Renato dare use the Sky Ripper? Oh, he hated that he had chosen this path. It was so much simpler to rescue friends and attack enemies. Even if some of those friends were more trouble than his enemies, some of those enemies had been friends before and might be lovers after. No, okay, it wasn't all that much simpler, no. Physics made his brain hurt. That, at least he was sure of.
Hey! Where do the ravens go? The live ones, I mean.
Nice.
Oops. Thought Renato?
Oops. Yeah, you gotta watch out for those red guys. They will explode. Yeah, I'm starting to get my butt kicked now. Yeah, just if you're curious too, I put all these Let's Plays up on YouTube as well, and I have a YouTube channel too. There's a link below if you want to check that out as well. There's other games and stuff that I play through the PlayStation Network and PC and all things as well. I don't know if Revlo bot put it up there yet, but I have a point system here that goes with feathers, and every minute you're here you get a feather. And save them up, gamble with them, or do other things.
Barely landed a claw on him.
It's like exclamation feather. Let's see how many points you have. I don't know if you followed or not yet, so if you did and I didn't say thank you for it, forgive me. I don't have no alerts on the PS4. I need to get me what do you call those? One of those kind of graphic, not graphic cards, but damn, I'm getting my butt kicked over here. The capture cards. That's what it is. Just for that reason. When I am playing on the PS4, I have no idea when any of my alerts are going off or anything.
Tried to focus on the now. The ravens who seemed everywhere all the time. Where did they hatch from? Were there giant raven hatcheries somewhere, or did they have families? He didn't want to think about raven mummies raising their darling raven chicks. Yeah, Calveras would help. He would make Renato feel better about using the Sky Ripper. And then Renato wouldn't have to worry about ravens ever again.
Yeah, seeing you on the PS4, if you haven't checked it out already, one demo that you have to try, and I'm sure you'll love it, is the new Dragon, what is that? Dragon Warrior Builders, the Dragon Quest Builders, that's it. A lot like Minecraft, just better graphics and a bigger quest line to it. Very fun game. I'm gonna have to get me that one soon. That game is just a lot of fun. Kind of like a Minecraft on steroids almost. So far, the trophies for this one have been really, really easy to get to, which is nice. Some of the PlayStation trophies are like impossible. Yeah, I always try to check out the free games. At least give them a chance. A lot of times like this one, never even expect it to be good, and the game is just excellent.
He was in a swirl of newly remembered knowledge. He needed to focus.
Yeah, every time you level up too, you get a ability point you can purchase through these like totems. And even give yourself more skills.
Renato had sacrificed a friend for the Sky Ripper. It would be worth it if he could bring a super weapon to the rebellion, but the scientists had ruined everything.
It also seems like when you first start out on this game, a lot more item drops, but after you get leveled up, they get less and less. True, true. Here we go. Here's the totems. You can get all sorts of different kind of abilities. Let me see. What's next for me? Speed, run faster. Stamina, maybe. Correct reflexes. Or dash through people. I'll try the reflexes this time. Freeze time. Cool. Some of these abilities are pretty wicked.
Calaveras had never let him down.
Yeah, of course I can make it work better.
But when Renato explained about the strings, Calaveras grew thoughtful.
Is the game volume alright?
Strings, you say?
Is it a little
Well,
low?
the Arcana do speak of the ties that bind the world.
He drew many intricate symbols in the dirt.
Yeah, so, according to my calculations, each time you fire, I'm afraid there's a 1 in 120 chance you'll destroy the universe.
That's pretty good odds. That's like rolling, what, 21 dice and they all come up 6. What are the odds of that?
What?
Cool.
No! It's more like 2.716 in a row.
Anyway, with those odds, it won't happen if I use it just once.
Yeah, no, that's not right. Each time you use it... Okay, look, just don't use it ever.
All right, I guess. As he sailed away from the mountains, Renato could see clouds darkening. Rain? No. Ships. Imperial ships, swarming thick as bees. This was it. The big battle. They could not afford to lose this one. What if it did not go well? What if he had to use the Sky Ripper? Could he gamble the universe? On the other hand, what were the odds of rolling 21 6s in a row? The battle was not going spectacularly well. What had the rebels been thinking? They'd been thinking he would bring the Sky Ripper, or the Iblis Stone, or that he'd sideline Zenobia somehow, or turn her. Couldn't he use the Sky Ripper just once? After all, if chances were 1 in 128, that meant he'd for sure be okay the first time. They'd get worse each time he used it, but the first time would be okay, right? He wasn't sure that it was right.
So he didn't fire the Sky Ripper. He just brought it along, in case. The other end of this portal wasn't suspended over the abyss.
Kind of glitched out there for a second.
A very clever engineer named Elon Muskrat got his start making floating platforms. Not many people knew that.
Where? Lost for a second there.
The worst thing about ravens was they never dropped any loot, and no one ever wanted the feathers. Someone had told him the odds didn't change just because you'd had a streak of good luck. His gut told him that was wrong, though. And he always listened to his gut. On the other hand, 128 chances to win, but one of them to destroy the universe. Ooh, that seemed a bit serious. Maybe he could defeat the Emperor without firing the Sky Ripper. Maybe he could bluff, but with a real weapon. Like in cards, when you had 3 knaves, but you pretended you had a fizbin. That could work. He set up the Sky Ripper and let it warm up. He would bluff if he had to. Zenobia came out, flanked by a very daunting platoon of ravens.
Okay, I'll accept your Sky
said,
request.
I know
Your friend request, but
you know nothing because you're just
I am
a
streaming
fox.
right now,
Of course
so
she had. Oh,
this
I
is
know
only
the
one
odds.
player game,
Good.
so
Because
party won't be an
there's a
option
real
right
chance
now.
you could destroy the universe. No, not the first time I use it. The odds are too
A
low.
2-player game would be a different story, but
No? Yeah, sure.
and if
The
I wasn't
first
streaming,
time,
I wouldn't
the odds are
care.
practically nothing. They only go up if I use it a bunch more times. No, but that's not how odds work. Didn't you pay attention in class? Now surrender, or I'll use it. Just once, he said. Don't. He felt sure the odds were with him. He had to go with his gut. That's what heroes do. Fire, he said. Please? The Sky Ripper fired. With a tremendous whoosh, the Emperor's flagship went up in flames. It was awesome. And then he noticed there was a hole in the air. A blackness, like a tear in a parchment. Wind was blowing into it, widening it. It
Sounds
grew
good, man.
larger and even larger. Crates fell upwards into it, and the world itself seemed bent, like the reflection on a curved mirror, as it poured into the ravenous hole. Ah, 1 in 128. What are the odds? Thought Renato, and then everything fell into the hole and was gone. He should go back to some of the choices he'd faced before. Maybe there were new paths that had opened up, like those doors he was opening up all over the map that took him to new treasures and around his enemies. But he'd learn another true
Sky
thing.
Ripper
The
core is
core was
unstable.
powerful, but dangerous if used improperly.
See, and then each time you go through this little area here, yeah, unlock another part of the story in which there seems to be 24 stories. So I've got a long way to go on this. But you unlock each part of the story, making different actions throughout the game, and it unlocks a truth. Then unlocks that and does something else. I haven't figured out what that is yet. But
Fluttered to the beginning once again.
then it goes right back.
Faster than
You
before?
get to choose all the different
And he fell.
stories again.
The clouds parted over the Isles of Boreas. It was time to choose. The rebellion was in trouble. Ravens were scouting for the secret rebel base. They needed a game changer. Pieces of the Sky Ripper had surfaced. Renato knew that using it could go catastrophically wrong. But he was sure he could figure out how to use it safely. Also, a temple had risen out of empty desert. The Emperor had brought the Sky Ripper pieces up out of ancient burial by his obscene rituals. Could this be where the Iblis stone was hidden? Someone better get it before
So do
he
you play
does,
Destiny at all, Joey?
thought Renato. And also, his old friend Lapino needed rescuing. Of course, Renato had a pretty strong suspicion that Lapino had betrayed the rebellion. But could Renato really leave an old friend to the Ravens?
Already?
The island was windswept desert. No one went there except ostriches and ostrich hunters. The Iblis stone. It sounded ominous. It sounded powerful. If the Emperor was searching for it, it must be dangerous. And so, Renato went ostrich hunting.
Yeah, I'm looking to play more Destiny soon. But I need to get the newest expansion yet. Hey, not a problem, man. It's all you learn what's going on. Asking questions. It's not a big deal.
But ancient codices held hints of other things. A stone that ate souls. A ruby that drank blood. A jewel only a righteous man could give
totally
away.
new one.
Were all these things the Iblis stone? Long hidden in a buried temple? Another ancient item that was only resurfacing now? Drawn up from the deeps by the Emperor's horrific rituals?
anything I could do in there. I already have all the gems that I want on there. I think 3 is the highest level for the gems too. Which really didn't take too long to get.
The air here tasted bitter. The steps were too tall for a person. The entire place felt restless, like it had been vexed to nightmare under the dust, waiting for its hour to come around at last.
Can you guys actually tell each other
I
apart?
expected that.
Because I'm thinking name tags.
Oh shit, I forgot about those guys.
His.
Well,
Ravens were
Kaboom.
already here.
almost
Clawing
was a
in
flawless
frustration.
victory.
They were still searching for a way in. Good. And he hadn't come too late.
Let's see, yeah, you got a ways to go yet before I can get anything. Hold on, right. Yeah, I'm at 0. Cut that guy right in half. Oh, get out of there. Explode. Alright, that was flawless. That was nice.
He needed some way to break the ice with this wall, so to speak.
And I had it. An ice sword. You have been chosen in this critical mission for your ability to follow orders to the letter without your question. Do not believe the naysayers. Your score in the intelligence test is only proof that you are better geared than anyone else who follow orders. Take pride in knowing that. I, your Emperor, have handpicked you for this mission. Follow the instructions to the letter. I always travel in pairs. Do not look at the engravings in the wall. Do not lose a hermetic box. When you find the stone, immediately place it in the box and seal the box. If you hear a voice in your head, ignore it. Remember, the temple is haunted. Obviously, this is an old temple dedicated to an old evil god. There will be blood sacrifices, of course. It will be haunted. Ignore the voice in your head. Remember, the ghosts cannot hurt you, but they will try to confuse you. When you hear a voice, take the drowsy pill. If you meet another soldier with the stone, it is not the hermetic box. Immediately spray them with drowsy gas. Find the stone, put it in the box, seal the box, and most important of all, find the stone.
road less traveled. This could be fun. If it wasn't fatal, that is. Renato had always wanted a flying carpet. This was more like a flying tabletop, but it would do.
Already. Glitch out or something. I guess we'll go back here for now. That works.
Renato was running out of ideas. Zenobia loved him to death. The Sky Ripper destroyed everything. And Lapino was a filthy traitor. Using a stone name for an evil god seemed unwise. But what else was there?
I'm really close to an upgrade.
But these islands were short on trash cans. The Ravens at least could not get past this point. Obviously, the temple builders knew how to deal with tomb raiders. Don't get ahead of yourself, lad. Oh, look. Fracking. It was a stone
of the purest blackness. It reflected no light, like a void made of gold. Nervous, he picked it up. Who said that? It was the stone. Eager, thirsty. That seemed tempting and terribly wrong. Zenobia was the Emperor's greatest general and a potent witch. But they had been close once, and Reynardo wasn't sure he really wanted to be Emperor. Why not capture the core of Sky Ripper instead? It was the eye of a lost god torn out by the Transcendent Emperor to power his greatest weapon. "Not the core," said the stone anxiously.
Let me see, which to choose. Kill Zenobia, or go for the core? Oh, let's try this one.
Was he listening to a talking rock? Ah, but the rock had a point. If the stone could truly turn him into a powerful warrior, he could defeat the Emperor with the very weapon the wicked old toad had sought for himself. To be a hero, you had to sacrifice old friends sometimes, especially when they've become enemies. As he placed the impossibly black crystal in his gauntlet, Reynardo had a sudden vision. Charred fields covered in dead ravens below a black sun. Was it the time of the lost gods before the Transcendent Emperor?
I can rush through
Was
this
it the
one pretty
future?
fast because I know the area.
It whispered. Take the power. He could feel the stone's hunger for souls, its thirst for blood. All right, I get it. This was going to be interesting.
I don't recall I've ever went that way before.
The ravens on Zenobia's island were no match for Reynardo. They screamed as the stones sucked out their souls. And with each death, he felt stronger. Take the power. The stone told him. You couldn't hack this kind of firewall. You had to warm it up to you. He couldn't do worse with Zenobia than he'd done with the core, could he? Two eyes good. One eye dead. Zenobia was waiting for Renato. She was alone, confident as always. Fire danced at the tips of her claws.
Are you here to surrender?
She seemed as cocksure as he felt. But she didn't know he had the stone.
And I've missed you too, love.
He chuckled. She spotted the stone and bolted without another word.
Bolted.
Haven't you always wanted to do that?
Finally, Renato caught up to her. He had never seen her scared before. At school, she'd been the determined, brave one. Now her eyes were wide, frightened. He didn't like seeing her this way.
Kill her,
Whispered the stone.
you cannot win your rebellion without it.
Please. No, said Zenobia. Not that way. Oh, they had been so close once. Could he really feed her soul to his demonic gem? But if he spared her, he would not get the full power of the stone. Oh, how could he be the hero he wanted to be? With a flick of his wrist, he slashed Zenobia's throat. Her eyes widened even more. And then the light went out of them. Renato felt amazing. Power was rushing into him like water from a burst dam. Oh, such brilliance, exulted the Iblis stone. Tasty. He felt a bit bad about killing her. He was pretty sure she still loved him. But needs must when the devil drives. Renato returned to the Farfarer and set a course for the next one. The Empire had a communication outpost there. He could call the Emperor directly. It was time to seize the outpost and let the Emperor know what he had done.
The Nexus was beautiful. He'd never realized how beautiful. Everything glowed. The wind was so sweet. The sun so soft. The stones so warm. The black raven feathers. Black feathers. Suddenly, his eyes are filled with them. He's falling through smoke, under a dead sun. A voice calls him home. Is this a vision? Whose? Is this the time of the lost gods? Or the future? No matter. What mattered now was killing his way to the Imperial outpost and challenging the Emperor from there. Once, Renato had been to a dungeon where all the chests were locked. It was awful. Up ahead was Lapino. What was he doing here?
Bernardo! Hey, buddy! Hey there, old buddy! Please don't kill me!
Why would I kill you? Asked Renato, although he had been thinking about it.
Well, you've become... I mean, no disrespect at all here. Kind of evil? Maybe you should, I don't know, go to the mountains to have a think? See if maybe you're sure the stone is not all that healthy a thing to keep?
I suppose you wanted, Renato said, and poked Lapino in the chest for emphasis. Oh, had he just killed Lapino? Damn it.
Whoops. He was a traitor to him anyway.
Building these platforms was so expensive, they'd run out of budget for guardrails. Renato rampaged through the Imperial outpost like a water buffalo rampaging. At the last moment, he remembered not to kill the Far Speaker Toad. After all, he wanted a word with the Emperor. But there was only silence. The Emperor was scared, like little girl. Well, he would gather the rebel army and slaughter the Imperial fleet. Applauded the Iblistone. Tremendous. Then the Emperor would have to answer his Far Speaker, wouldn't he? Who are you? Asked a distant voice that sounded uncomfortably like Zenobia. What have you become? The mountains. Go to the mountains, urged another that sounded a bit like Lapino. to let the Note gather their forces. Then he killed the Far Speaker Toad. Why? Well, because to make sure his sword was sharp. Oh no, that's awful. So no one else could use it. Yes, that's it. Then he set off for the ruins and the secret rebel base. The ruins were crawling with ravens. Probably looking for the secret base, Renato thought. But then he realized they're probably looking for me. They must be very scared of me. Well, here I am. You are the finest warrior ever, whispered the Emperor's tongue. And he had to agree with it, for once. Who was as good as Renato? She thought about Hypatia. Oh, she'd been an amazing rabbit. She could talk to him about comics, and talk to her son about history and battles, and talk to scholars about the ancient tomes hidden deep in the vaults of the Library of Rubar. Oh, Renato really missed her. Renato was so happy. Their stone was the best friend he'd ever had. Really, who would bury such a treasure in the desert? Soon, he'd go rally the rebellion and usher a new age for the islands of Erda. Urged the stone. Let it make you Emperor. Come to think of it, Renato thought as he put down another raven, why shouldn't I be Emperor? How did anybody get to be Emperor anyway? By making war. I mean, not counting the transcendent Emperor, obviously, who had banished the lost gods and started time. Yes, he should be Emperor. He would make a great Emperor. Right, Stone? Oh, right, boss. These things really slice like ham. The long stairs. So he was close to the rebel base. Nothing was on fire. So far, so good. They're being burned.
Up.
Nero strode into the council.
Let's do this thing. Let's make me Emperor.
They looked confused and nervous. Ah, had he mentioned the Emperor thing? Yeah, he meant to bring that up later.
I mean, let's go win this rebellion.
He waved his sword around encouragingly. They ran. Cowards. He'd stop them. He cut down a few to inspire the others. But soon, there was no one to cut down. Well then, he'd have to attack the fleet alone.
More for me,
He said, unless it was the stone that said it.
traitors. Traitors, all of them. They'd run rather than following him, rather than cheering him. What should he do to the cowards? Anything he wanted to. After all, he was a true hero, the best warrior there ever was. No one could stop him now.
But first, finish him. The Emperor, that is.
Where was the rebel fleet? They weren't even trying an assault. They were going to miss a day in history. The downfall of this dynasty, and a new one to take its place.
He didn't have to kill all the ravens. He could enslave them. And enslave the toads, too. All the animals would worship him as a god. For he had once been a god. They would willingly give him their blood and their souls. And the world would change. Would become familiar again.
Or I could go that way, he thought.
Slow-mo.
Bernardo was glowing with dark power. Already the sun had dimmed. He could do anything, he realized. He could wrap the island safely in smoke again. Beyond a hero. He was going to become a god again. How odd, he thought, that the Ibn Stone had nothing to say about any of this. Well, no matter. Once he killed this petty toad emperor, he would bring back the Black Sun.
What did you do if one of these platforms stalled?
Soon he'd confront the Emperor. Again.
This time, he'd make an end of him. He'd screwed up last time, but he had a good feeling about this time. He found the Emperor and the Council huddling by his ship, plotting. They saw him and cowered before him.
Back to hell, fiend.
Croaked the Emperor desperately.
In the name of the Transcendent Emperor!
Croaked the speaker. They held some arcane items he didn't recognize. He simply flexed his will and sucked their souls out of their bodies. And Iblis exulted. It is finished. And the void that had been a mere stone on a sword expanded. It stretched and ripped like a vast womb. And a gaze, black and pitiless as the sun, passed through the void into the land. And so time ended. He should go back to some of the choices he'd faced before. Maybe there were new paths that had opened up. Like those doors he was opening up all over the map that took him to new treasures and around his enemies. But he'd learned another true thing. The Iblis Stone was evil. It would try to corrupt anyone who used it.
Right.
The book's pages fluttered to the beginning once again. Faster than before? And he fell. The clouds parted over the Isles of Boreas. It was time to choose. The rebellion was in trouble. Ravens were scouting for the secret rebel base. They needed a game changer. Pieces of the Sky Ripper had surfaced. Bernardo knew that using it could go catastrophically wrong. But he was sure he could figure out how to use it safely. Also, a temple had risen out of empty desert. The Iblis Stone was hidden there. It was a dangerous artifact. It could corrupt its user into a bloodthirsty monster. Maybe he could find a way to use it. To take its power without surrendering to its wickedness. And also, his old friend Lupino needed rescuing. Of course, Renato had a pretty strong suspicion that Lupino had betrayed the rebellion. And he had a gut feeling that he needed to use that to his advantage.
There's a key there now.
The island was windswept desert. No one went there except ostriches and ostrich hunters. The Iblis Stone. It would whisper promises in his ear, offer him power for blood. But this time, Bernardo was sure he could master it. And so, Bernardo went ostrich hunting.
Every child could sing verses about the Sky Ripper, but ancient codices held hints of other things. A stone that ate souls, a ruby that drank blood, a jewel only a righteous man could give away.
Were all these things the Iblis stone? Long hidden in a buried temple? Another ancient item that was only resurfacing now? Drawn up from the deeps by the Emperor's horrific rituals?
Try to run through these as fast as we can.
Stay there. I'll go get the marshmallows.
Ravens were already here, cawing in frustration. They were still searching for a way in. Good. Then he hadn't come too late.
Three skill points. Let's see. We will do
Cool. Wish I could do that. See? And it'll kind of look good on you.
You can't really reason with an energy ball, he thought. There had to be some way to use the Iblis stone. It was old, wasn't it? People are so much cleverer now.
And Renato was pretty sure he was cleverer than most people.
Too fast.
The Ravens at least could not get past this point. Obviously, the temple builders knew how to deal with tomb raiders. Oh, this really didn't have much in the way of safety features, did it? It was a stone of the purest blackness. It reflected no light, like a void made solid. Nervous, he picked it up. It was the stone, eager, thirsty. That seemed tempting and terribly wrong. Zenobia was the Emperor's greatest general and a potent witch. But they had been close once, and he had a sneaking suspicion the gem would try to control him. Why not capture the core of Sky Ripper instead? It was the eye of a lost god torn out by the transcendent Emperor to power his greatest weapon. "It's the core," said the stone anxiously. But even though Renato knew how evil the gem was, he had a clever plan for dealing with it. Why was he listening to a talking rock?
Is he gonna go a different way with it?
As he placed the impossibly black crystal in his gauntlet, Renato had a sudden vision. Charred fields covered in dead ravens below a black sun. Was it the time of the lost gods, before the transcendent Emperor? Was it the future? It whispered. Take the power. He could feel the stone's hunger for souls. Its thirst for blood. All right, I get it. This was going to be interesting. beautifully. He was a bard when he needed one.
On Zenobia's island were no match for Reynardo. They screamed as the stones sucked out their souls. And with each death, he felt stronger. Take the power, the stone told him.
He couldn't do worse with Zenobia than he'd done with her before, could he?
Shortcut.
Sleep tight, thought Reynardo.
Zenobia was waiting for...
Hey! I got this friend who's a swan. Could he join up? He dyes his feathers.
Finally, Reynardo caught up to her. He had never seen her scared before. At school, she'd been the determined, brave one. Now her eyes were... Please. No, said Zenobia. Not that way. Oh, they had been so close once. Could he really feed her soul to his demonic gem? But if he spared her, he would not get the full power of the stone. Oh, how could he be the hero he wanted to be? Reynardo hesitated. Zenobia was his greatest enemy. She was the Emperor's daughter and his greatest general, and the single person Reynardo least wanted to remove from this world, especially that way. She was holding her arms out before her, hands fluttering, fending him off with hopeless urgency. Nope, she was weaving a spell. He couldn't move. This thing is evil, she said. She slid the Iblistone out of its slot in his gauntlet and slipped it into a bag. Maybe we can learn from it. She eyed him with a strange, wry, apologetic look. I missed you too. And before he could move again, she was gone. Learn from the Iblistone? What did that mean? Would she take it to the palace or to the observatory on the Nexus? If she thought it was evil, she wouldn't want it in the palace. And, after all, it
was evil, wasn't it?
Maybe I can outrace her to the observatory, thought Renato. Cats can run faster, but foxes can run longer. Renato felt a little sick. Ever since Zenobia had taken the stone from him, he'd felt an ache that wouldn't go away. He missed it. He wanted it back. He needed it back. Why hadn't he killed her when he had the chance? She was the enemy. He hadn't even seen her in 14 years. Why had he hesitated? You're a sucker for an empowered woman. Renato kicked himself. Don't make that mistake again. Zenobia thought the stone was evil. Was it?
Well, yes, but he still longed to have it back.
He'd felt so good killing ravens with it, and yet he'd felt unclean ever since he'd touched it. She confused him. She'd made him want to be a better fox, and then she'd abandoned him, never telling him she was the Emperor's daughter, never contacting him since.
Well, who was she to tell him the stone was evil? Imagine if you built a house of one of these things. Oh, that would be amazing. It would be like having a boat. Renato had been to a dungeon once where all the chests had teeth and eyes. It had been a short visit.
The scientist toads were pointing arcane instruments at the stone and looking at it through prisms and reflections.
Mine, said Renato.
Then, a far-speaker toad croaked, in something like Zenobia's voice.
Leonardo, leave the stone with the toads. It will swallow your soul. You'll kill everyone you love.
That did seem vaguely familiar. But Renato had an army to lead, an empire to bring down.
I know you can fight this thing.
Zenobia continued in the far-speaker's croak.
You let me live. You know how evil it is. It will destroy you, Leonardo. It will destroy everything you love.
He had tried to convince himself that this time he would control the Iblis stone. But he could feel his will becoming brittle. She was right. He would get rid of it. Right? Now. Or now. He didn't really want to. I know. I'll go to the mountains, Renato thought. I'll find the strength to do it in the peace and quiet there. As the Farfarer landed at the foot of the mountains, Renato was surprised to find Lapino there. What are you doing here?
Oh, you wouldn't believe it. I was stowed away on an Imperial courier ship, dressed up as a combat nurse carrying a general's beak transplant.
This is not a great time, said Renato, who was pretty sure he did not, in fact, believe Lapino's story.
That's when you need your friends,
said Lapino. I just need some peace and quiet, said Renato, and grimly set out on the path.
welcome to Earth.
Renato told the corpses. It was something he'd seen in a play once. This was much easier than free climbing. Renato told his friend how he had slaughtered the toads, and how he had nearly slain Zenobia.
A terrible burden, this Iblis stone.
Sympathized the rabbit. Yeah, but I need it for the rebellion.
Do you now? You know, you were a pretty fine fighter before you were wielding a demonic decoration.
Oddly, the sword wasn't whispering at him to kill Lupino. Up ahead in the mountain, there was a peaceful spot. If he could rid himself of his burden anywhere, it was there. How we do it, said Renato to himself. Renato thought it would make a difference, snatching the Iblastone before the Emperor could get it. But it would destroy him. Zenobia and Lupino, they were both trying to save him. Peace. That was what he needed. So much for peace and quiet. There was Lupino. Again.
You're stronger than some dumb rock,
Lupino said.
let's just bury it. And no one will ever find it again.
Renato could feel the spirit energy of all those dead ravens inside him, pecking away. The rabbit was right. Even if the rabbit was a traitor, he was still right. He tore the Iblastone from his gauntlet and threw it into the hole Lupino had dug. The stone was silent. Probably sulking.
Now whoop those Imperials, said Lupino.
Are you coming?
No, I can't come with you. It's my old injury, you know. Recently, it's been acting up terrible. I'd be no use to you at all.
So Renato boarded the Farfarer alone. Renato felt lonely on board the Farfarer. How could his old friend Lupino, miraculously escaped from the Empire, leave him to face the final battle alone? Well, he'd abandoned Lupino before, hadn't he? It was only fair. And of course he felt lonely. He'd given up the Iblastone and all the souls he fed it. course he felt alone. But he had done the right thing. It had been hard to do, but there was no better feeling than that. Zenobia would be so proud of him. The battle, alas, was not going well. He no longer had the stone, and he'd never gotten the core. Lapina wasn't with him, and he was up against Zenobia, out there somewhere, maneuvering the Emperor's forces. The rebels had been outnumbered from the start, and he still had that aching longing for the stone. But that is what it means to be a hero. He would fight his way to Zenobia. He would show her what he was capable of. Just him, with no diabolic accoutrements. He would win, no matter the odds. Had that door been opened before? Yes, that was it. Pirouette, slash, parry, dodge. Renato had never done such good work in a fight. He wished the poets were along to sing of his exploits for his old age. Maybe he wouldn't have to kill Zenobia. Maybe he could defeat her and take her prisoner. Then he could turn the tide against the Emperor. If she wasn't crowned princess, once this was all over, she'd have more time for him, right? You know nothing, Jon Snow. This was definitely better than pulling yourself up in a bucket. By some miracle, Renato fought his way to the Emperor's ship. He was exhausted, bleeding, but he'd found the strength to reject the stone. Zenobia came out of the ship. "Renato!" she shouted, and then she fell down and died. Lapina was behind her, wielding a sword that seemed to suck all the light out of the sun. "You idiot!
You threw the stone away, cried Lapino. You said it was evil. It hates sanctimonious prigs like you, laughed Lapino. We're having a grand old time. Renato turned and ran. But no matter where he ran, Lapino jumped in front of him until Renato was cornered. That boy could hop. You wouldn't do this to an old friend, would you? Cried Renato. You mean this? Said Lapino, as he slid the sword into Renato's guts. Damn it! Again?
I had to feel like that was gonna happen.
Again? But he already had all the secrets he needed. He was sure of that. He must have not used them the right way. What was the best, worst mistake he could make? Probably trusting that traitor Lapino.
One and three.
The book's pages fluttered to the beginning once again. Faster than before? And he fell. The clouds parted over the Isles of Boreas. It was time to choose. The rebellion was in trouble. Ravens were scouting for the secret rebel base. They needed a game changer. Pieces of the Sky Ripper had surfaced. Renato knew that using it could go catastrophically wrong.
Last playthrough,
He was
let's see what
sure
I
he
can
could
open
figure
up,
out how
and then
to
I'm going
use
to take
it
a break
safely.
here.
Also,
And there'll be a part
temple
4
had
coming
risen
up.
out of empty desert. The Iblis stone was hidden there. It was a dangerous artifact. It could corrupt its user into a bloodthirsty monster. Maybe he could find a way to use it. To take its power without surrendering to its wickedness. And also, his old friend Lapino needed rescuing. Of course, Renato had a pretty strong suspicion that Lapino had betrayed the rebellion. And he had a gut feeling that he needed to use that to his advantage. Renato finally realized that Lapino was a traitor to the cause. And maybe Renato could use that somehow. Renato couldn't quite put his paw on when he'd realized Lapino was working for the Empire. He'd never exactly seen Lapino sending coded messages to the palace, but he was sure. The rabbit had been on too many disastrous missions where he was the only survivor, or where he accidentally missed getting on the boat that went down to the abyss in flames. If Renato could prevent Lapino from getting back to the fleet with all the intelligence he'd probably gathered, it might be worth the trip.
Oh, man.
How had they come to this? They'd been on so many adventures together. Lapino had talked Renato out of prison at least 4 times, and Renato had rescued Lapino from at least 2 lynch mobs. He'd always felt that the rabbit resented him. Lapino was hilarious because he was so down on himself and everyone else. But behind the laughs, he wasn't a happy camper. Was this payback? Or did the Empire have his little white tail in a vice?
Ravens were landing everywhere from dropships. He'd better get moving. If they got to Lapino first, the Rabbit would give the Empire all the intelligence he'd been stealing from the Rebellion, and they'd probably give him a medal. He'd have to be very careful about how he played Lapino. At the slightest hint of danger, the Mad Rabbit would take off like a rabbit. This chest smelled kind of funky. He hoped he didn't get it in his clothes. Lapino would betray him. The core was dangerous. And Renato had a fleeting idea that the two ideas went together somehow. And then it was gone again. Damn ideas. They never stuck around when you needed them. Bloody exhausted, Renato finally reached Lapino. The Rabbit was practicing shuffling his favorite deck. Now that he knew what the Rabbit was, there were a few things about him that Renato didn't find so amusing anymore. You sent me an urgent message saying that you're in danger. Oh, I am. The Ravens are coming. Now, I got a clever plan to kidnap Zenobia. Renato wanted to clap shackles on the Rabbit and shout, "You're a traitor, and I'm not falling for it." But if there was one thing Renato was sure of, it was that the core of the Sky Ripper was dangerous mostly to its user. If he could put it in the Emperor's hands, old Isengrim III might blow himself and his fleet up with it. Yes, that was it. Me? A traitor? I'm hurt, said Lapino. Why ever would you say that? We found your code book, said Renato. They hadn't, but he hoped Lapino would blow his cover. You got me, said Lapino. And you know what? I don't regret a thing. It's always about you, isn't it? You're the pretty hero. You get the girl, you get the medal, and what do I get? Rabbit food. I thought you liked rabbit food. Go to hell, said Lapino. And he made a gesture, and 20 ravens came out of nowhere and stabbed Renato to death. He had tried something bold and paid the price for it.
Alrighty.
How had they come to this? They'd been on so many adventures together. Lapino had talked Renato out of prison at least 4 times, and Renato had rescued Lapino from at least 2 lynch mobs. Renato what? But he'd always felt that the rabbit resented him. Lupino was hilarious because he was so down on himself and everyone else. But behind the laughs, he wasn't a happy camper. Was this payback? Or did the Empire have his little white tail in a vice?
This was way better than being able to shrink down to the size of an ant. What was that all about, anyway?
Ravens were landing everywhere from dropships. He'd better get moving. If they got to Lupino first, the rabbit would give the Empire all the intelligence he'd been stealing from the rebellion, and they'd probably give him a medal. He'd have to be very careful about how he played Lupino. At the slightest hint of danger, the mad rabbit would take off like a rabbit. Bloody and exhausted, Renato finally reached Lupino. The rabbit was practicing shuffling his favorite deck. Now that he... Oh, I am! The Ravens are coming! Now, I got a clever plan to kidnap Zenobia. Renato wanted to clap shackles on the rabbit and shout, "You're a traitor, and I'm not falling for it." But if there was one thing Renato was sure of, it was that the core of the Sky Ripper was dangerous mostly to its user. If he could put it in the Emperor's hands, old Isengrim III might blow himself and his fleet up with it. Yes, that was it. Renato felt like a real hero, brave and smart. He told the rabbit all about the Sky Ripper's God's Eye core. "I'll go get the core while you attack Zenobia," he told the rabbit. "But wait, I've an even better idea. I'll get the core and you attack Zenobia," said the rabbit. "Right, yeah, that is better," agreed Renato. Perfect. The traitor would make sure the Emperor got the core. Now Renato just needed the Emperor to use the core. If he could only get something that the Emperor wanted very badly. Zenobia. He could save her and bait the Emperor at the same time. Right. Now, all Renato had to do was fight his way through Zenobia's invading troops, sneak onto her ship and into her bedroom, and kidnap her without any of her dozens of guards alerting her. Then, he would rely on her love for him to convince her how evil her father was, so she'd run away with him instead of going back to her father, who was going to blow himself up. It did sound a little risky. But Renato had a feeling it would work out somehow. It always did. Renato was halfway to Zenobia's encampment when Lupino showed up. He was disheveled and distraught.
They jumped us. I barely got away.
Oh, they got the core. Oh, it was all going according to plan, thought Renato. Now he just needed Zenobia on his side. Yes, that was even better. The Iblis Stone. Zenobia could get it. And then the Emperor would have to pursue them. Wait. No. The gem would corrupt anyone. Even her. That's it, he thought. Even Lupino. Even though Lupino was already a traitor. It would turn him against his secret master, the Emperor. He would try to make himself Emperor. And the Emperor would have to defend himself with the core. Boom. He was a super genius. This is terrible, Renato told the rabbit. If only I had gone for the Iblis Stone. But now it's lost in enemy territory. He handed Lupino a map. It gives the bearer so much power. We can only hope the Emperor never finds it.
What was that?
Said Lupino.
I think someone's following us.
I didn't hear anything. Rabbit ears.
You go on ahead. I'll check it out.
And with that, Lupino hopped off with the map. Renato slinked through Zenobia's ship, making no sound at all. She was curled up on her bed. He'd forgotten how beautiful she was, how sleek, how soft. He tapped her on the shoulder with his sword. She was made of smoke, and he noticed he had a very solid blade to his throat. "Did you really think you could capture me?" Purred a familiar voice. "I just wanted to chat," said Renato. "Did you ever wonder why the Emperor adopted you? He needs a sacrifice. Someone who truly loves him, to make a bargain with the lost gods." "That's a vicious lie. He wants to bring them back." "No, that's crazy. Why would anyone..." "They could make him immortal. An eater of souls." And with that, her eyes widened. She understood. Renato told her how he had rescued a priest whose order had been massacred. How he had slept in a burnt village. At midnight, the Emperor's victims had come to him in his dreams to tell him of the hideous eldritch rituals they'd been sacrificed in. He could still see those kittens and puppies. Their wide, sad eyes, their moist noses. "You can't prove that." "I've got a witness at the observatory." He couldn't tell her, not yet, why he was really here. He didn't want her to be anywhere near the fleet when her father blew himself and Lupino up. So he told her about how the Emperor's obscene rituals had raised ancient artifacts out of the land. How he'd fought... Good thing Renato didn't have vertigo. The rebellion had started after atrocities that the Empire hushed up. Renato had rescued a priest whose order had been massacred for one book. He had slept in a burnt village. Dead kittens and puppies had come to tell him what the Emperor had done to them.
Don't you think I'd know if my father started practicing black magic? Why? Would you join in? Renato was no physicist, but he could have sworn something was wrong with the trajectory of these cannonballs.
The observatory was a burning hulk. Dead scientists and black feathers everywhere. The Ravens had taken special care to burn the reanimated witness to cinders. Zenobia stared at the carnage.
He didn't want me to hear the witness, did he?
I guess not.
What's your plan? She asked. So, Renato explained his brilliant gambit. Sending Lapino to get the Iblis Stone, become super powerful and corrupted, provoke the Emperor into using the core against him, thus blowing up both of them, and hopefully the fleet too. Let me visit your council, she said, shaken. I want to help.
Could he really trust her?
Done it. He'd made Zenobia see how evil her father really was. He wished she didn't feel this urge to join in the rebellion. After all, he'd taken care of the Emperor, right? Yeah, but she'd always been conscientious like that.
She told him she had to go somewhere first. So Renato gave her the location of the secret base, and they agreed to meet in the ruins. He had a very good feeling about this. What had Zenobia gone off to do? What was more important than meeting the rebel council? Had he made a mistake, sending her to the ruins? No. He knew they could trust each other. He could trust her because she never broke her word. And she could trust him because she could see right through him. Well, she'd probably be there well before him. She at least didn't have to fight her way through rainstorms of ravens. Renato wondered how much Hypatia had known about the book she protected. Enough to tell her son to protect it. Enough to tell Renato to protect her son. He'd let her down there. As he came around the bend, there was Lupino, unconscious on the side of the path. And Renato could smell a familiar, sweet, smoky scent. Who? Zenobia. It had to be. She never used a combat spell when she could use drowsy gas. That meant she had the Iblis Stone. What would it do to her? She hated her father now. She'd kill him for sure. The council wouldn't mind if she killed the Emperor, but murdering her father would destroy her. He had to get to whatever ledge she was on and talk her down from it.
Say goodnight, Gracie, said Renato, wondering who Gracie was.
Long stairs. So he was close to the rebel base. Nothing was on fire. So far, so good.
You never knew where the road would take you, thought Renato. Everyone in the council chamber was dead. Zenobia stood shivering in the courtyard, drenched in blood. Why? He managed. They started arguing with me. I lost my temper and I wanted their blood. Not me. The stone did. Why did you take it from the Pino? I had a plan. You had a stupid plan, she said. I'm going to go kill my father now. No, you can't. You'll just take his place. You'll become worse than him. Get out of my way, or I'll kill you too. Watched her board her ship and sail off. A few days later, the sun dimmed. A great void opened in the sky, black as the Iblastone itself. It stretched and ripped like a vast fatal womb, and a gaze black and pitiless as the sun passed through the void into the land. And so the lost god Iblis once again came into his own, and time stopped. He had tried something bold and paid the price for it.
At least that makes that choice pretty clear.
The Empire had seized his ship. They'd have to take it back. Renato had a feeling that was the back door to something. But what? And there it was, his beautiful skycraft. Interrupted story time. Couldn't believe Raven. Now we'll never find out how it ended. There was an inscription on the platform. Balaleka lessons, with an address.
Hurry up.
But they did not go unnoticed. Scout ships lifted off, and the long lance of the Imperial flagship. Bernardo turned downwind to gain speed. The Raven ships could pursue, but they couldn't close. The Farspeaker croaked, "Return her and live!" "Go sacrifice yourself," yelled Bernardo. "Then you won't have her either." On the flagship, the Emperor was readying some arcane weapon. It couldn't be. It was the core. A devastating beam lanced out of the flagship. Bernardo zigzagged wildly to keep the Farfare out of it. Now the Raven scout ships were closing the distance, and the beam was getting closer too. Then came a blinding flash, and the air was searingly hot all around him. There was a thunderous, deafening roar. He could smell burnt oak and burnt feathers and burnt flesh. But when he could hear and see again, they were alive and unhurt. And they were alone in the sky. Zenobia embraced him. They had done it. Through luck and through love, they had won the war. "Avalon, here we come," he said as he held her arms wide in the prow of the boat and let her feel its speed. "Maybe the real Avalon is wherever we're together," she said. And so, after a bit of an argument, Bernardo and Zenobia went to one of the two Avalons. The one shrouded in mists, or the one in their hearts.
But which one they went to, I'll never tell.
He'd done it. He'd forged his own destiny. Well, he hadn't actually done it. But he knew what he would do. Renato smiled at the book. He practically wanted to kiss it. The kid's sacrifice hadn't been in vain. He'd saved the book and saved the world. Renato owed him and his mother so much. Renato lowered the mainsail.
I guess that was the end. I
Let
guess
the
I picked the right
Farfar
thing.
shoot forward in the breeze.
But there's still a lot of other
Second star to the right.
things to get to
Straight
completion.
on till morning. This time, he would win.
Wowzers. So you pretty much just keep going through it until you pick the right path to get to the ending. I'm assuming it's gonna let us try to get all of it. The stone and Sky Ripper is always active. Toggled in the gameplay options menu. Fun.
The clouds parted over the Isles of Boreas.
Continue game.
It was time to choose. The rebellion was in trouble. Ravens were scouting for the secret rebel base. They needed a game changer.
Pieces of the Sky Ripper had surfaced. Renato knew that using it could go catastrophically wrong. He was sure he could figure out how to use it safely. Also, a temple had risen out of empty desert. The Iblis stone was hidden there. It was a dangerous artifact. It could corrupt its user into a bloodthirsty monster. Maybe he could find a way to use it. To take its power without surrendering to its wickedness. And also, his old friend Lupino needed rescuing. Of course, Renato had a pretty strong suspicion that Lupino had betrayed the rebellion. And he had a gut feeling that he needed to use that to his advantage.
Let's see, view of the stories. We just got that one. So we saw, or which one did we get? That one didn't light up anything. Oh, hero path completed. That's what that lit up. Alright. This says you can go. Alright, well, for now, seen it beat. You can leave it at that, or you can continue watching to see me go through this. If you're joining me on YouTube, be sure to check me out on Twitch. Number 1, Archangel 1. That's 1 ARC Angel 1. And if we're here joining me on Twitch, thanks for stopping by. Thanks to Joey9909 for stopping by and saying hi during the stream. And we will catch you all later. Take it easy, people.